The notifications on Lucas's phone lit up the dark living room like a rhythmic, silent heartbeat, each one a window into a night he wasn't invited to. It started with a harmless Instagram story of clinking glasses, but it ended at 2 a.m. with a defiant text that shattered the last pillar of their marriage. "Then divorce me." He didn't scream, and he didn't throw the phone against the wall. Instead, he made one simple digital adjustment to their home security system that said more than 1,000 arguments ever could. There is a terrifying quietness that comes right before a man decides he is finished being disrespected. If you understand the weight of that silence and want to see what happens when the nice guy finally pulls the trigger, stay with me. The blue light of the smartphone was the only thing illuminating the living room of the penthouse on the 42nd floor. Outside, the Chicago wind whipped rain against the floor-to-ceiling glass, blurring the city lights into streaks of gold and charcoal. Inside, the silence was heavy, pressurized, like the air in a submarine diving too deep. Lucas sat on the edge of the sprawling leather sofa, a tumbler of untouched bourbon resting on the coaster. It was 1:43 a.m. He wasn't a controlling man. He had told himself that for 3 years. He didn't track her phone, he didn't demand passwords, and he didn't count the receipts. But tonight felt different. Tonight, the bank alerts had pinged 4 times between midnight and now. The Velvet Room. VIP service. The Velvet Room. Uber Black. He scrolled up to the message he had sent 20 minutes ago. "Elle, it's late and it's pouring out. Just checking you're safe. Do you want me to come pick you up?" It was a peace offering, a bridge. He knew she was with her friend, Sarah, a divorcee who treated marriage like a temporary affliction and was determined to drag Elena down to her level of miserable freedom. 3 dots danced on the screen. Then they vanished. Then they appeared again. The phone buzzed against his palm. The vibration felt like a drill against his nerves. "Stop checking up on me like I'm a child. I'm having fun for once. God, you're so suffocating." Lucas stared at the screen. He took a breath, the air conditioning hissing softly in the background. He typed back slowly, his thumbs hovering over the glass. "I'm your husband, Elena. I'm worried. Come home." The response was immediate this time. It wasn't just a text, it was a detonation. "If you hate who I am so much, then stop waiting up. If you're so miserable, then divorce me." The words sat there, glowing white against the dark background. "Then divorce me." It wasn't a question. It was a dare. It was the culmination of 6 months of eye rolls, of cold shoulders in bed, of her laughing at his jokes a little too late in front of company. She was betting on his fear. She was betting that Lucas, the steady architect who built structures designed to withstand earthquakes, was too terrified of the rubble to blow up the foundation. She was wrong. Lucas set the phone down on the coffee table. He didn't throw it. He didn't scream. A strange, cold clarity washed over him, drowning out the anxiety that had been eating at his gut all night. He stood up and walked to the hallway closet. He pulled out the 2 large Toomey suitcases they had used for their honeymoon in Italy. He unzipped them. The sound was sharp, tearing through the quiet apartment. He walked into the master bedroom. He didn't throw her clothes in a pile. He folded them. He packed the silk blouses she bought with his supplementary card. He packed the heels she was wearing the night they met. He packed the jewelry box. He moved with the efficiency of a man closing a business deal. It took him 45 minutes. He wheeled the bags to the front door and left them standing there, 2 dark sentinels against the cream-colored wall. He walked back to the living room and picked up his iPad. He opened the Home Secure app. User, Elena. Status, Administrator. Action, revoke access. Are you sure? The screen asked. Lucas didn't hesitate. He tapped, yes, passcode deleted. He picked up his phone one last time. He snapped a photo of the two suitcases sitting by the door, bathed in the soft foyer light. He opened the chat with Elena. She hadn't written anything else. She was probably dancing, confident that he was sitting here stewing, preparing an apology for the morning. He attached the photo. He typed 2 words. Offer accepted. He hit send. He watched the status change to delivered, then read. For 10 seconds, nothing happened. The rain lashed against the glass. Then, the phone in his hand began to ring. It wasn't a text. It was a call. Elena. Lucas looked at the caller ID, his face illuminated by her smiling contact photo. He let it ring. Once, twice, 3 times. He reached out and pressed the side button, silencing the call, plunging the room back into darkness. The vibration in his pocket was relentless, a frantic Morse code of panic that Lucas ignored as he gripped the handles of the Toomey suitcases. They were heavier than he expected, weighted down not just by silk and cashmere, but by the density of the finality they represented. He didn't take the main elevator. He didn't want to see his own reflection in the polished brass mirrors of the resident's car, the image of a husband evicting his wife in the middle of a thunderstorm. Instead, he pressed the button for the service lift. The doors slid open with a heavy mechanical rattle. The interior was lined with padded gray quilts, smelling faintly of industrial cleaner and dust. It was fitting. This was the exit route for trash, for renovations, for things that were being discarded. As the lift descended 42 floors, Lucas pulled his phone out. 7 missed calls, 12 text messages. Lucas, pick up. This isn't funny. You can't just lock me out. I live there. I'm in the Uber. Stop acting crazy. He watched the messages scroll by, his thumb hovering over the screen, feeling the ghost of an old habit, the urge to reassure her, to fix it, to de-escalate. But the memory of her text, then divorce me, was a jagged shard in his mind. It wasn't just the words. It was the entitlement, the belief that he was a fixture, a piece of furniture that would always be there to absorb her contempt. The lift bumped gently to a halt at the lobby level. The doors opened to the pristine, hushed grandeur of the building's entrance. The night concierge, a man named Marcus who had worked the graveyard shift for a decade, looked up from his desk. His smile faltered instantly when he saw Lucas and the luggage. Mr. Vance? Marcus stood up, smoothing his uniform. Is everything all right? Are you traveling? Lucas wheeled the bags across the marble floor. The wheels clicked rhythmically, echoing in the high ceiling space. He stopped 5 feet from the revolving glass doors. Beyond them, the Chicago rain was coming down in sheets, blurring the streetlights into an impressionist painting of gray and orange. I'm not traveling, Marcus, Lucas said. His voice was steady, terrifyingly calm even to his own ears. These are for Mrs. Vance. He left the bags standing there, lonely islands on the expansive floor. He turned to the concierge. She is currently on her way back. When she arrives, please ensure she gets these. Marcus looked at the bags, then back at Lucas, his professional mask slipping to reveal confusion and discomfort. Sir, does she have her fob? I've deactivated it, Lucas said. He pulled a white envelope from his jacket pocket. He had written it while the elevator descended. It contained a single debit card with a $2,000 limit and a list of 3 nearby hotels. Give her this. And Marcus? Yes, Mr. Vance. She is not to be let up to the penthouse, under any circumstances. If she causes a scene, call the police. Do not call me. The request was brutal. It stripped away the privacy of their marriage, laying their wreckage at the feet of an employee. Marcus swallowed hard, nodding slowly. He understood the hierarchy of the building. The name on the deed was Lucas Vance. Understood, sir? Lucas turned back toward the elevators. His phone buzzed again, a long, sustained vibration indicating another call. He didn't look at it. He could picture her in the back of the Uber, mascara likely smudged, the alcohol in her system turning from a buzz into a sick, anxious knot. She was racing toward a home that no longer existed. He stepped back into the service elevator and pressed the button for the 42nd floor. As the doors began to close, he saw the headlights of a black SUV pull up to the curb outside. The brake lights washed the lobby in a sudden violent red. Lucas didn't hit the hold button. He let the doors slide shut, sealing him in the gray silence. The ascent began, and for the first time in years, the air around him felt breathable. The Uber driver didn't even pull all the way to the curb. He idled in the second lane, his wipers slapping frantically against the deluge. Elena scrambled out, her stilettos slipping on the wet asphalt, a curse dying in her throat as the cold wind bit through her thin dress. She slammed the door, not bothering to rate the ride, and sprinted toward the golden awning of the Kensington. She was shivering, but it wasn't just from the cold. It was the adrenaline cocktail of vodka, panic, and indignation. In the car, she had convinced herself that Lucas was just making a point, a dramatic, theatrical point. He would be upstairs, sitting in the dark, waiting for her to beg so he could play the benevolent forgiver. She had the speech ready in her head, a mix of defensive tears and half-truths about how the text was just a joke. She reached the glass doors and tapped her key fob against the black sensor pad. Nothing. No beep. No green light. Just the red, unblinking eye of the LED. She tapped it again, harder this time, scratching the plastic against the reader. "Come on," she hissed, her wet hair plastering against her cheek. Inside, through the rain-streaked glass, she saw movement. Marcus. Good old Marcus. He was walking toward the door, but he wasn't reaching for the release button. He was walking with a strange, heavy gait, his eyes fixed on the floor before finally meeting hers. He pushed the manual door open just enough to block the gap with his body. He didn't step aside to let her in. "Mrs. Vance," he said. His voice was low, lacking its usual warmth. "Marcus, the thing is broken," Elena said, trying to push past him, breathless. "It's freezing. Let me in." Marcus didn't move. He was a large man, built like a linebacker, and tonight he felt like a wall. "The fob isn't broken, ma'am. It's been deactivated." Elena stopped pushing. The water dripped from her nose, ruining the expensive makeup she had applied 4 hours ago. "Excuse me, Mr. Vance. He left these for you." Marcus gestured behind him. Elena looked past his shoulder. There, standing in the center of the expansive, cream-colored lobby, were her 2 suitcases. They looked pathetic sitting there, alien objects in the perfectly curated space. Next to them was her tote bag, the one she used for gym clothes. The air left her lungs. He packed my bags?" "He asked me to give you this," Marcus said, extending a white envelope. His hand shook slightly. He hated this. She could see the pity in his eyes, and it burned worse than the alcohol in her stomach. "And he instructed that you are not to be admitted upstairs. He said if there was a disturbance, I was to call the authorities. The authorities? Elena laughed, a high, brittle sound that cracked in the lobby. This is my house, Marcus. My name is on the lease. Well, it's on the paperwork. You can't keep me out. Mr. Vance is the sole owner of the unit, ma'am. You know the building rules regarding guest access when the owner revokes it. Guest. The word hung in the air, heavy and sharp. After 3 years of marriage, she was reduced to a guest whose pass had expired. Elena grabbed the envelope. Inside was a single debit card and a piece of stationery with 3 hotel names handwritten in Lucas's blocky architectural script. No note. No, I'm sorry. Just logistics. She pulled her phone out, her fingers trembling so hard she almost dropped it. She dialed Lucas again. It didn't even ring. The subscriber you are calling is not accepting calls at this time. He had blocked her number. Ma'am, Marcus said gently, glancing at the security cameras. You can't stay in the vestibule. It's a liability. Elena looked at the bags. Then she looked at the rain thrashing the street behind her. She was stranded. Her friends were still at the club, probably ordering another round, assuming she was home safe in her penthouse. If she called them, the story would be out by morning. Elena got kicked out. She felt a sob rising, hot and choking, but she swallowed it down. She wouldn't give Marcus the satisfaction. She wouldn't give Lucas the satisfaction. Call me a taxi, she whispered, her voice unrecognizable. I can do that, Marcus said, visibly relieved. 10 minutes later, Elena sat in the back of a yellow cab that smelled of stale smoke. Her suitcases were jammed in the trunk. She looked up at the building as the car pulled away. The lights on the 42nd floor were completely dark. He wasn't even waiting up to watch her leave. The sun rose over Lake Michigan with a cruel, blinding brightness that demanded productivity. In the penthouse, the silence was different than it had been the night before. It wasn't the heavy, pressurized silence of an impending argument. It was the clean, sterile silence of a hospital room after the patient has been discharged. Lucas moved through his morning routine with the precision of a metronome. 6 a.m. alarm, espresso, a 5-mile run on the treadmill overlooking the skyline. He showered, shaved, and put on a charcoal suit. He didn't look at the empty side of the bed. He didn't look at the indentation on the pillow where her head usually rested until noon. On his phone, the notifications had stacked up like unread newspapers. 34 missed calls from unknown number. Elena borrowing friends' phones. Dozens of texts ranging from "pick up, you psychopath" to "I'm sorry, baby, please let's talk." Lucas swiped his thumb across the screen. Delete all. He walked into his architecture firm at 8:30 a.m. sharp. His assistant, a perceptive woman named Chloe, glanced at him, looking for the usual signs of a domestic hangover. The tired eyes, the distracted temper. Lucas gave her a curt nod and asked for the blueprints on the Meridian project. He was terrifyingly functional. He sat in meetings, corrected structural loads, and joked with clients. The only difference was that every time his phone buzzed, he didn't check it. He had turned the device face down on the mahogany conference table, a small black slab that served as a tombstone for his marriage. Across the city, in a mid-range hotel room near O'Hare that smelled faintly of lemon polish and stale air conditioning, Elena woke up to a headache that felt like a physical blow. She reached for her phone instinctively, expecting the apology text, expecting Lucas to say he was outside, that he had overreacted, that he had brought her favorite latte. The screen was empty. No notifications from Lucas. Not one. She sat up, the sheets tangling around her legs, Panic, cold and sharp, began to prick at her skin. She was alone. The two suitcases stood near the door, mocking her. She needed coffee. She needed to think. She dressed quickly, pulling on yesterday's jeans, and went down to the hotel lobby. She ordered a cappuccino and a croissant. When the barista named the price, Elena tapped her Platinum Amex, the supplementary card attached to Lucas's primary account. Declined. The barista smiled apologetically. It happens. Do you have another card? Elena felt the blood drain from her face. She pulled out the visa. Declined. I don't understand, Elena stammered, feeling the eyes of the line behind her burning into her back. There's no limit on these. The machine says card reported lost or stolen, the barista said, her voice dropping to a discreet whisper. Elena left the coffee on the counter and walked out, her hands shaking. He hadn't just locked her out of the house, he had locked her out of her life. She stood on the sidewalk, the wind whipping her hair, and dialed the bank. I'm sorry, Mrs. Vance, the customer service representative said, her voice chirpy and detached. The primary account holder, Mr. Vance, placed a temporary freeze on all supplementary cards at 8:05 a.m. this morning due to security concerns. You'll need his authorization to lift it. Elena hung up. She looked at the debit card Lucas had left in the envelope. $2,000. That was it. That was the severance package. She sat on a bench outside the hotel, watching the cars rush by. For 3 years, she had complained to her friends that Lucas was boring, that his stability was stifling, that she felt like a bird in a gilded cage. She had mocked his spreadsheets and his 401k obsession. Now, without the cage, she realized she had forgotten how to fly. She didn't even know how to pay the phone bill that was due next week. She opened Instagram. She went to Lucas's profile, expecting to see a vague, sad story, something she could screenshot and send to her friends to prove he was losing it. His story circle was empty. His feed was unchanged. It was as if she had never existed. At 2 p.m. she sent a text. It wasn't angry this time. It wasn't a dare. Lucas, my cards aren't working. I can't buy food. Please, this isn't a game anymore. In his office, Lucas felt the watch on his wrist buzz. He glanced at the message preview. He took a sip of his lukewarm water, his eyes fixed on the horizon line of the city he helped build. He didn't reply. The silence was the answer. The silence that Lucas had carefully constructed was broken not by Elena, but by her cavalry. It started on Tuesday evening, 48 hours after the lockout. Lucas was in his home office, reviewing the structural load for a cantilevered balcony on the North Shore, when his personal phone began to buzz with a different kind of intensity. It wasn't Elena. It was Sarah. Sarah was the ringleader of Elena's social circle, a woman who had monetized her own messy divorce into a lifestyle brand of independence and misandry. Lucas had never liked her. He found her loud, performative, and deeply unhappy. The message appeared as a banner on his screen. You're a sick man, Lucas. Cutting off her money? Locking her out in the rain? I'm contacting a lawyer for her. We're going to destroy you. Lucas stared at the text. He could imagine the scene perfectly. Elena sitting in that beige hotel room, crying, while Sarah paced back and forth, drinking wine and drafting threats, treating Elena's life like the latest season of a reality show. He didn't reply immediately. He took a sip of sparkling water. He opened the folder on his desktop labeled Avid. A moment later, his phone rang. It was Mark, a mutual friend, a good guy who usually stayed out of the drama. Luke, Mark's voice was strained. Look, man, I don't want to get involved, But Sarah is posting things on her close friend's story. She's implying you hurt Elena. Physically. People are talking. You need to get ahead of this. Lucas felt a cold spike of adrenaline. The abusive husband narrative. It was the nuclear option. It was a lie that could end his career, tarnish his firm, and stain his reputation permanently. The silence was no longer a shield. It was becoming a liability. "Thanks, Mark," Lucas said quietly. "I'll handle it." He hung up. He didn't scream. He didn't go to social media to rant. He simply opened the group chat that included Elena, Sarah, and their 4 closest couple friends. The inner circle that they vacationed with in Aspen and Cabo. He uploaded a single image. It was the unedited screenshot of their text exchange from Sunday night. "Lucas, it's late and it's pouring out. Just checking you're safe. Elena, if you hate who I am so much, then stop waiting up. If you're so miserable, then divorce me." He added one caption beneath the image. "I am simply honoring her request. Please direct any further legal threats to my attorney, who has the full logs proving abandonment and the prenuptial agreement regarding infidelity clauses. I suggest you all read the fine print before you slander me." He hit send. The effect was instantaneous. The typing bubbles from Sarah appeared, then vanished, then appeared again, then vanished. She had nothing. The narrative of the poor, controlled wife collapsed under the weight of Elena's own cruel words. Lucas wasn't the aggressor. He was the compliant party in a transaction Elena had initiated. In the hotel room, Elena's phone pinged. She saw the screenshot in the group chat. She saw the silence that followed from her friends. No one rallied to defend her. The Yas Queen energy evaporated the moment the truth was laid bare. Sarah, who had just been promising to ruin Lucas, suddenly went quiet. Elena looked at the screen, reading her own words back to herself. "Then divorce me." In the harsh light of day, stripped of the nightclub's beus and the vodka courage, they didn't look like a declaration of independence. They looked like a suicide note for her marriage. She realized then that Sarah didn't care about her marriage. Sarah just wanted company in her misery. And Lucas, the man she had called boring and controlling, was the only one who had ever protected her dignity, until she forced him to stop. Lucas watched the group chat for another minute. No one replied. He placed the phone face down on his desk, the screen going dark. The social war was over before it had even truly begun. He turned back to his blueprints, but his hand was shaking. Just slightly. It was the tremor of a man who had just fired a gun in a crowded room. The conference room on the 55th floor of the Willis Tower was designed to intimidate. It was a glass box floating in the sky, offering a panoramic view of the city that made human problems look insignificant. The table was a long slab of polished black granite, cold to the touch. Lucas sat at the head of the table, flanked by his attorney, a man named Arthur Sterling who spoke in soft, lethal sentences. Lucas wore his navy suit, the one Elena had picked out for him for his brother's wedding. He looked impeccable, but his eyes were rimmed with red. He hadn't slept in 72 hours. The door opened. Elena walked in. She looked smaller than he remembered. She wasn't wearing the club attire or the frantic, disheveled clothes of the lockout night. She was wearing a soft cream cardigan and jeans, her hair pulled back in a loose, messy bun, the way she wore it on Sunday mornings. It was a calculated move. She was weaponizing nostalgia. She sat at the opposite end of the table. She didn't have a lawyer. "Lucas," she breathed, her voice cracking instantly. She reached across the granite, Her fingers splayed as if trying to bridge the 6 feet of distance between them. Can we stop this? Please. This is insanity. Sterling cleared his throat, opening a leather folder. Mrs. Vance, we are here to discuss the terms of the temporary separation and the enforcement of the prenuptial agreement regarding— Stop! Elena snapped, her eyes fixed on Lucas. Lucas, look at me. I'm sorry, okay? I'm sorry I said it. I was drunk. I was angry. I didn't mean it. Lucas finally looked up. He studied her face. He saw the genuine terror in her eyes, the realization that the safety net she had been cutting away at for months was finally gone. He felt a familiar ache in his chest, the muscle memory of loving her. It would be so easy to nod, to say it's okay, to let her come home and pretend the foundation wasn't cracked. You did mean it, Lucas said. His voice was quiet, devoid of anger. Maybe not the divorce part, but you meant the disrespect. You meant the contempt. I was just venting. Everyone vents, Elena pleaded, tears spilling over. I love you. Doesn't that matter? I made a mistake. Are you really going to throw away 3 years over one text message? Lucas closed his eyes for a second, gathering his resolve. It wasn't one text, Elle. It was the 1,000 small cuts before it. It was you telling your friends I was boring because I worked late to pay for this life. It was you rolling your eyes when I spoke. The text was just the signature on the contract you've been writing for months. I can change, she whispered. I'll stop seeing Sarah. I'll get a job. Whatever you want. Lucas stood up. The movement was sudden, causing Elena to flinch. He walked to the window, looking out at the gray expanse of Lake Michigan. I know you love me, Elena, he said to the glass. And God help me. I still love you. I miss you right now. But here's the truth you need to understand. He turned back to face her. I respect myself more than I love you. The words landed in the room like stones. Elena flinched as if she had been slapped. It was the one argument she couldn't defeat. She could fight his anger. She could fight his jealousy, but she couldn't fight his self-respect. Arthur has the papers, Lucas said, buttoning his jacket. The settlement is generous, more than the prenup requires. But the locks stay changed. He walked toward the door. He didn't look back. He couldn't. He knew if he saw her crumbling in that chair, he might turn around. So he focused on the brass handle of the door, opened it, and stepped out into the hallway, leaving his marriage behind in the glass box. The office was a cavern of shadows, illuminated only by the desk lamps of the few associates still grinding away in the bullpens. In his corner glass office, Lucas was staring at a CAD rendering of a lobby that looked suspiciously like the one he had evicted his wife from. He rubbed his temples, the exhaustion settling into his bones like lead. It had been 7 days. 7 days of sleeping in the center of the king-sized bed. 7 days of a quiet phone. 7 days of feeling like a phantom limb was missing from his side. A soft knock on his glass door shattered the silence. Lucas swiveled his chair. He expected the cleaning crew. Instead, he saw Elena. She had somehow bypassed security, likely charming the night guard who knew her face. She wasn't wearing the lawyer meeting cardigan, nor the club dress. She was wearing his vintage Michigan State hoodie and leggings. Her face was scrubbed clean of makeup. She held a brown paper bag from their favorite Thai place, the one they used to order from every Friday night before things got complicated. I know I shouldn't be here, she said, her voice small. She didn't step fully into the room, hovering in the doorway like a stray cat, unsure if it would be kicked. But I brought pad thai, No peanuts. Extra lime. Lucas looked at the bag. The smell of basil and chili filled the sterile air, instantly transporting him back to their first apartment, before the penthouse, before the money, before the resentment. Elena, he sighed, the fight draining out of him. You can't do this. I'm not asking for anything, she said quickly, stepping inside and closing the door. I didn't want to eat alone, and I know you haven't eaten. You never eat when you're stressed. She placed the bag on the edge of his desk and began unpacking the cartons with practiced familiarity. She handed him chopsticks. Their fingers brushed. The electric shock of the contact was immediate, a visceral reminder of the chemistry that had bound them together for 5 years. Lucas took the chopsticks. He shouldn't. He knew he shouldn't. But the hunger, both physical and emotional, was overwhelming. They ate in silence for 10 minutes. It was comfortable. It was terrifyingly easy. For a moment, the last week dissolved. Elena laughed at a comment he made about a client, a genuine warm sound that he hadn't heard in months. She walked around the desk to look at his screen, leaning her hip against the edge of the mahogany. You look tired, Luke, she murmured. She reached out, her hand finding the knot of tension in his shoulder. Her thumb dug in, perfect pressure, knowing exactly where he held his stress. Lucas closed his eyes. He leaned back into her touch. It would be so simple. He could just turn the chair, pull her into his lap, bury his face in that hoodie that smelled like her shampoo and his old cologne. She was here. She was trying. Wasn't that what marriage was? Forgiveness? I miss you, she whispered, her hand moving up to cup his jaw. I miss us. I'm scared, Lucas. I don't know who I am without you. Her thumb stroked his cheekbone. Lucas felt his resolve trembling, cracking like ice under weight. He wanted to say it back. The words were in his throat. Then, his eyes opened and landed on the phone sitting on the desk. Specifically, on the date. Friday. Last Friday, she had been at a pregame with Sarah, ignoring his calls. If he took her back tonight, in 6 months, it would happen again. She respected him right now because he was firm. If he folded because of a container of pad thai and a shoulder rub, he wasn't a husband to her. He was a safety net. He reached up and gently, firmly, took her hand from his face. He stood up, creating distance. The loss of her warmth was a physical blow. I miss you too, Lucas said, his voice hoarse. But I can't be your rehabilitation center, Elena. You're scared because you're alone. You need to learn how to be alone. If you don't, you'll never actually want me. You'll just want the safety I provide. Elena's face crumbled. She saw the wall go back up. Not a wall of anger, but of sadness. Lucas, please go, he said, turning back to the window, unable to look at her tears. Take the car downstairs. I'll tell the driver to take you back to the hotel. He heard the rustle of the paper bag, a sniffle, the soft click of the door closing. Only when he was sure she was gone did Lucas slump back into his chair, burying his face in his hands, breathing in the lingering scent of lime and heartbreak. The ink was still wet on the decree when Lucas walked out of the revolving doors of the courthouse. It was November now. The humid rain of that fateful summer night had been replaced by a biting wind that swept off the river, cutting through layers of wool and cashmere. It had been 90 days since the text message, 90 days since the locks changed. He didn't feel triumphant. He didn't feel the surge of victory that divorce lawyers promised. He felt light, but it was the lightness of a man who had lost a significant amount of weight too quickly. A hollow, slightly dizzy sensation. 3 miles north, in a third-floor walk-up in Lincoln Park, Elena sat on the floor of her new apartment. It was a studio. Charming, the realtor had called it, which was code for small and lacking a dishwasher. The radiator hissed in the corner, a sharp, metallic sound that grated on her nerves. Surrounding her were the cardboard boxes that contained the fragments of her life. The 2 Toomey suitcases, the ones Lucas had left in the lobby that night, sat in the corner, battered and scuffed. She had dragged them here herself. She picked up a framed photo that she hadn't unwrapped yet. It was from their honeymoon in Positano. Lucas was looking at the camera, smiling that rare, guarded smile, while she kissed his cheek. They looked untouchable. Elena set the photo face down on the laminate floor. She stood up and walked to the single window. The view wasn't the sweeping skyline of the Gold Coast. It was a brick wall and a fire escape. Below, she could hear the bass of a car stereo thumping by. She picked up her phone. She opened Instagram. Sarah had posted a story from Cabo, captioning it, "Living my best life." Elena didn't double tap. She realized now that Sarah's best life was funded by alimony she didn't have, and validated by strangers she didn't know. Elena had traded a man who would have moved the world for her for the approval of women who wouldn't even help her move a sofa. Then divorce me. The words echoed in the empty room. She had thrown them out like a grenade, expecting Lucas to dive on it to save her. Instead, he had let it explode. She had her freedom now. The bed was hers alone. The schedule was hers alone. And the silence. God, the silence was so loud. Back downtown, Lucas walked along the Riverwalk. The city lights were beginning to flicker on, reflecting in the dark water like submerged stars. He stopped near the railing, resting his elbows on the cold metal. He took a deep breath. The air smelled of winter and water. His phone buzzed in his pocket. He ignored it. It wasn't Elena. It would never be Elena again. That line was dead. He looked up at the skyline, tracing the silhouette of the buildings against the purple bruise of the twilight sky. He had built parts of this city. He understood structure. He understood that sometimes a building is too damaged to be renovated. Sometimes the foundation is compromised, and the only safe option is to condemn it and walk away before it collapses on top of you. He adjusted his scarf, turned his collar up against the wind, and began to walk. His stride was long and steady. He was walking back to a quiet apartment, to a dinner for one, to a life that was smaller than it had been a year ago. But as he merged into the crowd of commuters, Lucas realized something profound. He wasn't lonely. He was just alone. And for the first time in a long time, he was safe.